This is very much reminiscent of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. They needed each other, correct? They were part of each other's storylines, and we see whole documentaries that are made about the intersection of their careers. Caitlin Clark was certainly surging in popularity before her and Angel Reese actually crossed paths. But the moment Angel Reese did this rivalry, the conversation around them both went to a completely different level.
People who weren't watching women's college basketball suddenly knew who Caitlin Clark was and who Angel Reese was because of that incident, and it was on all the morning shows. We talked about it.
Yep.
So I think it made them both more than just basketball players, right? Which is why they have this huge fan base now watching the WNBA.
That's why Larry Bird and Magic Johnson is such an appropriate comparison. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson had the most watched men's national championship game in history. I believe they still have the record. They brought all that with them. They had a rivalry from that game, and they brought all of that with them into the NBA. And it's the same in this case. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, their storylines are just feeding off of each other.
Why do you think people are honing in on Caitlin to some extent to the exclusion of Angel?
Not only is she good, not only is she a record breaker, not only does she have an electric style of play, but she's white, she's straight, and she's from Iowa. So you have an underdog story that's in there. You have somebody white that, that matters in this country. I mean, it mattered for Larry Bird too, in that people who had not seen themselves dominate at a level from that particular place, being from Indiana, hadn't seen themselves dominating in the NBA, that created more of a sensation. And Angel Reese being a post player, I think that also is why people tend to minimize just how good that she is. Because listen, we have greatest player debates all the time. You know who's always left out of that discussion? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, even though his resume is stacked through and through because of, frankly, it's part of a positional discrimination, if you will.
You hear male players talk about themselves all the time. Like, did Michael Jordan ever have anything but glowing things to say about his game and what he brought to the game?
Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest.
Muhammad Ali, you hear men say it all the time, but as soon as a woman says it, it's like, oh, whoa, 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 hey, what? I mean, it seems like that's what's going on here.
It's part of the many things that are fueling all of these conversations about Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, and just how people are looking at the WNBA as a whole. I think for a lot of people, seeing women compete the way that they compete is very startling. What's also startling is that you have a league that is about 70% Black. And when you have, much like we saw with the hip check that happened between Kennedy Carter and Caitlin Clark, anytime that you see Black on white, where you have somebody Black doing something to somebody white in a physical space, in an athletic arena, it creates a entirely different wave of discussion and reaction than it normally would. Getting back to us talking earlier about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, I promise that Angel Reese did that to somebody who was Black. Had she did that to Camila Cardoso or somebody from South Carolina, it would not have become the thing leading all talk shows across America. You have people who want to cast Angel Reese as the villain in Caitlin Clark's story because that is unfortunately what happens to outspoken, confident Black women like Angel Reese, who has a very good sense of herself and understands what the storyline is being created around her. That's why she said, I'm happy to play the villain if it's bringing more attention to the league. But keep in mind, when she left college in her final press conference, she also talked about the weight and the toll of that, of having to face death threats, having to be called racist names for the last couple of years simply because of her competitive rivalry with Caitlin Clark.